Hi, I'm Barbara Batson, Exhibitions Coordinator for the Library of Virginia and one of the curators of the current exhibition, We Demand Women's Suffrage in Virginia. While the exhibition is closed during this health crisis, my colleagues and I thought that we would highlight some aspects of the exhibition and the story of the fight for women's suffrage in Virginia. So today, let's take a look at a remarkable scrapbook compiled by Marion Reed. The scrapbook is in the collection of the Valentine, Richmond's History Museum, and I thank Christina Vita, curator of the Valentine, for alerting me to its existence and for letting the library digitize it. So it's actually in digital form in the exhibition. So what is the scrapbook all about? In April 1916, Marion Reed was one of 23 women who participated in the Suffrage Special, a 5-week train journey to Western states whose legislatures recognized women's right to vote. The women traveled to Illinois, Kansas, Colorado, Arizona, California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Montana, Idaho, and Utah, where they attended rallies and luncheons and dinners, talked with politicians and other suffrage groups, and even did a little sightseeing. A native of Massachusetts, Marion Reed moved to Highland Springs, Virginia with her husband, Percy Shelby Reed, a real estate agent. She was involved with the Women's Alliance of the Unitarian Church and was a founding member of the Highland Springs Women's Club. In 1913, she and her sister-in-law formed the first Girl Scout troop in Virginia. That's your trivia for the day. In 1911, Reed was a founding member of the Highland Springs chapter of the Equal Suffrage League of Virginia, and she served as its secretary until 1915, when she joined the more radical Congressional Union for Women's Suffrage, which sought an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. At the April 4, 1916 board meeting of the Virginia branch, Reed and Maud H. Hudson were elected delegates, quote, to go on the trip to the voting states, at an estimated cost of $365 per person. Hudson declined, so Reed was the only representative from the Virginia branch, and indeed she was the only representative of any southern state on the trip. On April 9, 1916, the Suffrage Special left Union Station in Washington, D.C. with a parade and music provided by the Naval Gun Foundry Band. For the next 38 days, the 23 envoys met with suffrage groups throughout the free states, as they called them, to appeal to the voting women of the West to put their political clout behind the Susan B. Anthony Amendment. The trip was serious business, but there were moments of humor and fun. The organizers recognized that, quote, for many of the women, this will be their first trip to the West, and the schedule has been arranged whenever possible so that the fine scenery would be passed during the daylight. In Oregon, Reed and Mrs. Gertrude B. Newell, quote, escaped from mass meeting and attempted ineffectually to assuage the pangs of hunger at a Chinese chop suey joint. In Seattle, Reed noted about a dinner held to honor the envoys that, quote, it is said of Mrs. Rood, the hostess, that she never appears without wearing $250,000 worth of pearls. Dinner and pearls hugely enjoyed by the Virginia envoy. After attending the Women's Voters Convention in Salt Lake City on May 12th, the envoys began their journey back to Washington, where they presented resolutions from Western women's suffrage groups to the Congress. When Reed returned to Richmond on May 18th, she was greeted by a fife and drum corps and decorated automobiles that accompanied her from the train station to the Jefferson Hotel, where she enjoyed a surprise dinner. After women won the right to vote in 1920, Marion Reed continued to serve as the secretary of the Virginia chapter of the National Woman's Party well into the 1930s. She supported the Lucretia Mott Amendment for Equal Rights, which received a favorable hearing in the Virginia House of Delegates Committee on the Courts of Justice during the 1924 General Assembly, despite opposition from the League of Women Voters. Reed reported that the women in the gallery, quote, wore the purple, white, and gold regalia, and they created a colorful display. The House of Delegates ultimately defeated the amendment 39 to 28, but as Reed noted, quote, 28 votes in favor of a blanket equal rights bill in the state of Virginia was nevertheless regarded as a long step toward victory. And indeed, she was right. It was a long step. Virginia's General Assembly finally ratified the Equal Rights Amendment in January 2020. Reed donated the scrapbook and a few other items related to her suffrage work to the Valentine in 1970. Long a childless widow, her husband died in 1926, Marion Reed died in Richmond in 1972. I hope when the exhibition reopens in the fall that you'll come visit the library and take a look at the scrapbook in its entirety. In the meantime, for more information, please visit our website at edu.lva.virginia.gov/wedemand. Thanks.